the thing that I want to know about, a kid who saw so much, bloodshed and things which were not really made for children to see. You might be having flashbacks of it still, it's not a really pretty image to carry around your hand. So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with the entire fact that while the other kids have had a good childhood, does that in turn give you a perspective about life, or you it has taken its hard toll on you, and it's even now you're dealing with it? Because a lot of people out there, I'll tell you, a lot of people who are hearing to this also have had a very rough childhood. So might be that your take on how to deal with a rough childhood, where you've been across so much yourself, might help them as well.
Yeah. So a lot of all of this trauma that is there as a child,
Hmm.
that seeps down into your youth and your middle age eventually as well. Okay, so this there's no turning back from it. All things that you know, all there's no turning back. And
Hmm.
I deal with it on a day-to-day basis as well. It's I cannot say that, oh my God, I have started meditating a lot and I feel good about life or something like that. There are some things that you cannot turn back from,
Hmm.
right? And it's completely okay. But what happened, what I was very lucky in one or two aspects. One aspect was when I left Kashmir in at the age of 17, and I haven't gone back and lived there since
Hmm.
then. Okay, I've been there in the past 8.5 years. I think I've been to Kashmir 4 5 times, and I've totally spent like total of 3 months probably there in the past 8 years. Okay,
Hmm.
that's a
Hmm.
very small time in 8 years. So what I realized is, I cannot probably live there anymore. That's the trauma and it's home at the end of the day.
Hmm.
It's home. There's no doubt in my head that it's home, but I cannot live there anymore. I won't be able to live there anymore. I will have to probably live in Bangalore for the entirety of my life, or somewhere
Hmm.
else out of India or whatever. But I cannot live there anymore, and that's something that will always hurt me. That'll always pinch me. And a lot of my poetry, a lot of my poetry, the poems that I write in English or in Urdu or in whatever language, they have themes of romance and they have themes of Kashmir, and
Hmm.
sometimes they have themes of falling in love in a place like Kashmir. Recently, I wrote this one piece where, at one point of time, I was actually writing a review of a Kashmiri experiential restaurant.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
not only the food that they're serving, it's also the entire experience that they're giving.
Experience. Yeah.
So what I realized was, and I wrote this, and it brought tears to my eyes and to the eyes of the restaurateur as well. I said that in history, who's gonna write who's going to write about our, in the future, who's going to write about the history of Kashmir, when the best of our writers right now are documenting the conflict in Kashmir, right? Who's going
True.
to remember us as, are we only going to be remembered as, are Kashmiris only going to be remembered as people who were brutalized and oppressed, or people who saw a lot of bloodshed, or people who lived in a conflict zone, or people who were militants or terrorists, or or whatever, right? At the end
Hmm.
of the day, is what about romance? Who's going to write about our love stories? Who's going to write about my parents, for example, before they got married, after they got engaged, running off to the Dal Lake and taking a shikara ride and getting stuck because of all the wind that was there and the waves that it created in the Dal Lake? Who's going to write about that?
Hmm.
I don't think anyone is. I don't think anyone will. I think, and this hurts me a lot. It hurts me on a day-to-day basis. Okay, but at the same time, it also helps me stay up, at night, work hard, try to build a life of my own, try to build an identity of my own, which is devoid of that conflict, which I don't want that conflict to reflect upon my children as much as it reflected upon me. And it's very hard, it's very problematic as well, but that's how we'll have to live. Also, it hardened me at a very early age. The story that I told you, it's
Hmm.
sleeping in the ATM. Right now
ATM.
it
Yeah.
feels very emotional to me, and whoever I tell the story to also gets really emotional. But in the moment, at that point of time, I was not emotional. In the moment, I was like, okay, screw it, you got to
That's
do
the
what you
best
got to
option.
do.
Yeah.
yeah, that this is the best option, this is what we'll do right now. In fact,
Mm.
I was proud of myself because I found out a solution, a cheap solution to not spend any money and at the same time have get some sleep. And that was primarily because of the quote unquote shit I had seen or been through before. And by now things don't matter a lot. It doesn't matter
Mm.
if you lose anything and everything, and the next day you're going to be a pauper or whatever, right? Because you've seen all that happen. Life is very short. Someone really really close to me used to say, life is too short or too long to be lived in the same way. Because if it's too
Mm.
short, then you want more variety in it, and you'd want to explore more. And if
True.
it's too long, then you cannot have a monotonous life. You can't live it in the same way. So life is too short or too long to be lived in the same way.
Same way.
And while I was living in one way in Kashmir, in one particular way, I lived in another way when I came to Chennai to study my engineering. And I completely left Kashmir behind, although it lived in me, but I didn't live there anymore. And I had some very good fortune finding some really brilliant friends from all across India, from all across the world, in fact, who became a very good support system with time. Writing is cathartic to me, so I keep writing and then singing. And
Mm.
usually, if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I sing these
Mm.
Kashmiri songs and I put them up as well. People don't
Right.
understand any of it, but it's catharsis for me because I'm putting out my feelings about that particular place, home, which is lost now, right? And so, to answer your question, I am dealing with it on a day to day basis. And it's just part of me now. It's part of my life now. It's part of my struggle now. And that's completely fine. It's fine to an extent. You talk to a therapist about it if you want to. You don't if you don't want to. You write
Mm.
about it probably. Or you talk to some other Kashmiris, and whine with them, whine along with them, and cry along with them. I'll just sit and I'll wonder for 10 minutes or 5 minutes in the day, and then it'll go. It'll be a fleeting moment. And then you live in the moment and you go with the flow, right? So that's that. I don't romanticize all this suffering and pain and everything that happens. So